Welcome to Mick and T Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. I'm Joe Ticotsky down here in New Haven, Connecticut.
I'm Evan McFarlane here in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, Canada. This
is our 11th episode overall. There we go. Three hands. There we go. And it's the second half of our two-part anniversary show. And I dug up a picture from our very first episode. You want to talk about a scared human being there. Good God, wow. We didn't know what we were doing.
All right. Welcome to Mick Sports Report.
A year ago when we started the show, most people had no idea what the following terms meant: social distancing, mask up, deep clean, positivity rates, and Fauci. And for that matter, most people had no idea what Zoom was, although before your time, Evan, it was a public television kid show back in the 70s called Zoom. But we somehow made it through, and believe it or not, we do have some fans out there. So here are some friends of the show that had some thoughts on our first anniversary that they wanted to share with our viewers. So let's take a look at those now.
Hey folks, Brad Henderson, Deputy Mayor of the town of St. Andrews, outside of the W.C. O'Neill Arena complex where a lot of the sports magic happens in our community. Felt like the appropriate place to send a congratulations out to Evan and Joe. Mainly Joe, because he's been able to carry Evan on his back for a year with his television show, which is no small accomplishment. So congratulations, gentlemen. Joe, your legs must be tired. If I did have one criticism of your show, there's always an opportunity to talk a little bit more about how great the Boston Bruins are, in particular Brad Marchand. So that would be great to see. But in all seriousness, gentlemen, outside of the show, I know that both of you are heavily involved in giving back to the youth of our community. Joe, you've done a lot of basketball camps. Evan, most recently, was teaching basketball and coaching basketball at SJDA, and single-handedly, I believe, revitalized the junior golf program right here in St. Andrews at the Algonquin Golf Course. So, gentlemen, thanks for everything you do for sports in St. Andrews, and as well, a special shout-out to Vicky and Patrick and the whole CHCO television team. This is just one of the shows that they're able to provide in great community broadcasting, and whether it be the news or even coverage during the pandemic, it has been abundantly clear that community television matters, and what they do every day is making a difference and making this a more enjoyable place to live. So thanks, Joe, Evan, and the CHCO team, and we look forward to the next year ahead as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Amelia Welch, and over the years I have helped out at CHCO-TV with numerous shows, including Mick and T's Sports Report. And I wanted to give a big congratulations to Evan and Joe on their 1-year anniversary of the Sports Report. It's wonderful you two keep up the great work. I've always appreciated you reaching out to me and having me on your show. Reading the news of the weird and having a good laugh with you two is always a great time. So I thought for old time's sake, I would just read one more news of the weird. So here we go. Daniel Albert, 39, is a homeless man who resides in St. Petersburg, Florida. For nearly 2 weeks, however, he lived in relative luxury. The Tampa Bay Times reported, Albert was arrested after a cleaning crew found razors, shaving cream containers, and blankets in a seldom cleaned suite at Al Lang Stadium, where the Tampa Bay Rowdy soccer team plays. Albert had been helping himself to food and team clothing valued at more than $1,000. He also consumed $250 worth of drinks. What a weird story. No wonder it made it into the news of the weird this week. Again, a big congratulations to Evan and Joe. Keep up the great work, guys.
This is Doug Watkins, and I'm zooming into the Mick and T Sports Report from the graphic design studios here at W4C. While just a small contributor to the program, I wanted to wish send a big congratulations to the show on their 1-year anniversary. Truly amazing. Been fun to kind of watch from the beginning, go through the shows. And again, congratulations to both Joe and Evan on 1 year. It's been fun kind of learning about local sports, local personalities. I've also enjoyed very much the virtual Zoom to the small towns. That's been a lot of fun, and learned a lot as well. And lastly, and I think most importantly, my favorite part of the show is the way the show brings that intersection and kind of overlap between sports and humor. My favorite part, I think, for sure. So big congratulations again to everyone, wishing both Joe and Evan, as well as CHCO-TV, continued success and continued great programming. Congrats, guys.
That was some good stuff right there. Coming up after the break is another friend of the show, Brandon Sherrod, who is actually the first person we interviewed on the very first episode of our show. We spoke to him recently from Italy, and that interview is coming up after this break. You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV. And today's interview takes us overseas to Italy through the miracle of technology to speak with our old friend Brandon Sherrod. For those of you who don't know his background, he is a 2016 graduate of Yale University, where he led the Bulldogs to the NCAA tournament and in the process set an NCAA record by making 30 consecutive field goals during the season. He is now in his 5th season playing professionally in Italy, and he comes to us from the town of Cento, where it's actually midnight local time. Brandon, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really happy to be on the show, even if it's virtually. Thank you, guys.
All right. Before we discuss the upcoming season, take us back to this past March when COVID-19 hit Italy pretty hard while you were still there.
Yeah, it was a really interesting period of time. I think one of the historic periods in my short history on Earth. So we had a game, and after our game was over, we came into practice on a Monday, and our team decided to give us a week off because the league was looking to schedule new games for teams who weren't able to play in the previous week. So we had heard rumblings from Bergamo in the north near Milan that there were a lot of issues with the coronavirus, but nothing had arrived in Naples. So Tuesday was that practice. Later on that day, the president of Italy announced that all of Italy was going to be a red zone as opposed to just the north near Bergamo and Milan. And so things got shut down. We were only able to go to grocery stores and pharmacies. And by the time I finally got a flight out, which was really expensive and extremely difficult to do, they had really shut the country down. So I kind of escaped and drove from Naples to Rome in my team's car and left the car in like a low-cost parking lot and packed as much as I could and went home.
Sounds like a bad TV movie there.
Yeah. It was horrible. But I kind of knew that we were in for trouble when I got off the plane and no one had a mask on and everyone was super close together in customs. I was like really shocked by that.
Wow. Have you have a question for Brandon?
Yeah, I guess, Brandon, this is going to be your 5th year over in Italy.
Yeah.
What's been the thing that's been keeping you there? Like, what do you find so intriguing about Italy as opposed to offers from other countries, maybe?
Yeah, this year I had the opportunity to get an offer from places like Israel and Poland. And what it comes down to for me is really the quality of life. I think, living here, I found that I can get the best of both worlds. I can play basketball in a really good league, but I can also live a lifestyle that suits me, one that's a little bit slower paced, one that really holds on to the values of family, which is something that's very important to me. And also there's great food, great people, and I really feel at home after learning the language too. So that's probably the reason why I've stayed so long, without a doubt.
Cool.
Brandon has a podcast with his 3 sisters that he recently started, and it's called the For Sure podcast, the number 4 and SHER. Tell us a little bit about that, Brandon.
Yeah, so we started the podcast during quarantine because we noticed that we were just having so many conversations that other people around the world that we were sure were having, and we wanted to just share our thoughts. And we have a very eclectic group. The 4 of us are doing a number of different things. My sister China is a singer full-time, and she's been in Nashville, Tennessee. My sister Chayla just started her first year of law school at Penn, and my sister Chelsea is a newscaster in Utica, New York, also former basketball player at Albertus Magnus. So we just had all these differing views, and we decided to put it together in a podcast. So instead of us just talking amongst ourselves, now everyone can listen in Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps to see what we've been talking about. And it's been a really great way to, spend time with each other and also get into the nitty gritty of some of these issues that are plaguing our country and things that we're just really interested about.
Yeah, no, it's a very entertaining show. Just don't even think of trying to elbow us out on CHCO-TV. We got the prime 8 p.m. spot. We're not giving it up.
Man, you can't have this.
We'll take over the mornings. Don't worry.
For those of you that don't know, Brandon is also a very accomplished singer who toured the world with Yale's famous Whiffenproofs a cappella group while in college. So before we let you go, you know what we're going to ask you. Can you grace our audience with a few lines of "Oh Canada"?
Yes.
I most certainly can. I can't say that this is off the top of my head, but I'm learning slowly but surely. So how about I'm going to do the back end, like the last 3 lines. How about that?
Okay.
Here we are. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on God for thee. Yes. Thank you.
It makes me think the doctor dropped. Let's play hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's at midnight. My goodness. Brandon, thanks so much for taking the time out to join us once again. You know, you're always welcome to pop in and chat with us. And just to help you out, because I know you're in a new area, I did some digging for you, and I found an excellent restaurant for you in Cento. It's just down the road from the town square. It's called Antica Osteria da Cencio. And my sources tell me you should get the tortelli stuffed with pumpkin, served with butter and sage.
Zucca.
And you could tell them Giuseppe sent you.
There you go.
Before we leave, Evan, pronounce the word P-A-S-T-A.
P-A-S-T-A, pasta.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. So all the Canadians pronounce it pasta.
Pasta. Yeah, for sure.
I had to go read it off the craft dinner box out in my kitchen.
All right, Brandon, once again, thanks a lot. It's amazing that you are able to join us at midnight your time. We're trying to work something out where we were all available, and we'll definitely get you on hopefully more than once a year.
Yeah, I'd love that. It's early over here for me, so don't worry. No worries at all.
There you go. We'll be back after this break for Small Town Spotlight, where we have a guest from a place called Joe Bat's Arm on Fogo Island in Newfoundland. She's a restaurant owner, and we'll be back and we'll show you that. You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. As we mentioned each episode, CHCO is now available on Bell Satellite TV all throughout Canada, so you can watch our show Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays if you live in Summerside, Prince Edward Island, Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories, or in the village of Labelle in Quebec. And as always, our U.S. viewers or anyone else throughout the world can watch the show on Charlotte County TV's YouTube channel, so please subscribe. For the first 2 editions of Small Town Spotlight, we were out west in Manitoba and Alberta, but today we head east, really far east. We're going to visit a place that's closer to Greenland than it is to St. Andrews. It's a place that's over 1,500 kilometers and 950 miles northeast of the CHCO studios, but it's not quite a direct route. We'll start with a 7 to 8 hour drive to North Sydney, Nova Scotia, followed by a 7 to 8 hour ferry ride to Channel Port aux Basques in Newfoundland, followed by another 6 to 7 hour drive to Farewell, where you'd have to take one more ferry, only an hour, to finally get to Fogo Island. And once you dock there, it's one last 30-minute drive, and we'd finally arrive in Joe Bat's Arm. I'm exhausted just giving the route. It's one of 11 communities on the island with a total population of about 2,200. And over at 159 Main Road is Scoff Restaurant, where we welcome co-owner Celina Parfitt to the show. Celina, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, how's everything going today?
Going good. We have nice weather. It's not foggy or raining, so you can't really ask for more.
Here we go. How about that?
Yeah.
That's what I dug up, a nice little logo here. All right, the most obvious question I know everyone wants to know is, how did the village get the name Joe Bat's Arm?
So I'm sure there's a ton of different stories, and I might be telling the wrong one, but I think that this is the right one. So there was a man named Joe Bat who was on, I can't remember the name of the explorer. I have my notes here. He was on Captain James Cook's ship, and they were in port at Gander Bay, which is, you'll pass Gander Bay when you're driving to Farewell. So it's about 20 minutes away from where our ferry ports. So they were in Gander Bay doing some surveying and general exploring, I guess. And so he jumped ship and tried to find somewhere to call home, I guess. So he found Fogo Island. I have no idea how long it would have taken him to get here because he would have been on his own pretty much. But so he found his way here, settled in Joe Bat's Arm, or what was to eventually be Joe Bat's Arm. And an arm is what people call like a little inlet around the shore that people settle within. And so I'm not sure if it was before or after he was gone or passed that they named it that, but they named it after him. So it's Joe Bat's Arm.
That's an awesome name.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Newfoundland's time zone is 30 minutes ahead of Atlantic time and an hour and 30 minutes ahead of the Eastern time zone. So if you're watching CBC television, you'll hear them say, tonight's news coming up at 6 p.m., 6:30 in Newfoundland. Celina, what's that all about, the time?
So that was something that was very interesting to get used to when I first moved here, was just everything that I was used to in New Brunswick time, becoming half an hour later. So when the time zones within Canada were established, I guess Newfoundland was of its own dominion at the time, which was, I don't know when the time zones were established, but it had the right to adopt its own time zone. And I think Newfoundlanders just like to be a little different from everyone else. And then 1963, they tried to change it to get it to be more like the Atlantic time zone, where you have New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI all in the same one. And there was an uproar of some sort that they wanted to keep it their half-hour difference. So there's something about Newfoundland. It must be the 8-hour boat ride that puts you a half-hour back.
Right. Okay, now, if I came into Scoff Restaurant, why don't you tell me something you would serve that I probably wouldn't be able to get down here in New Haven, Connecticut?
So the whole thing that we wanted to do when we were opening the restaurant, we worked at the Fogo Island Inn for a few years, and we learned a lot about Newfoundland food culture and like the foodways here, which is a lot of like preservation, and things really need to be either shelf stable or dried out in some way so that it can keep through the winters that are always long and harsh here. So one of the things that we came up with was kind of like a riff on fish and brews, which is a traditional dish here that is made up of salt fish, so salted and dehydrated cod. Anytime I say fish in the next little bit, it'll always be cod. We don't specify when it's codfish, just say fish, and then every other fish gets called by its name. So salmon is salmon, but fish is always cod. So saltfish, potatoes, and then something called hardtack, which I had never worked with until I lived here. It's kind of like a dehydrated bread roll almost. So when you take it out of its package, it's like hard as a rock, like you could beat someone over the head with it. And you have to soak it, usually for overnight is the rule of thumb, and then you boil it after that, so it becomes like nice and soft.
Would it look like that? Would it look something like that?
And so this came from fishermen would pack themselves their goodies to make themselves lunch on the boat, or while they were away for days, weeks at a time. And potatoes, saltfish, and dehydrated bread were the best way to go about that. Some people don't make it with potatoes. Some people just make it hardtack and salt cod, but it's all pretty much boiled together and then poured out over a plate. The best way I've ever had it is with the potatoes with it, and then some scrunchions, which is salted pork fatback. So you take the nice, like, thick rind of fat that you get off of like the either belly portion of pork or just like right underneath the skin, and then that's salted and left in a brine, and then you cut it up really small and render it out until it's like nice and crunchy. And then you put a little bit of the fat over top too, so it's just like salt on top of salt, but there's nothing better than that.
So you're probably saying my cardiologist would not recommend that for me.
Yeah, I have to go get my cholesterol checked every year because I'm worried for the day that it's bad, because I do eat a lot of salt.
Before you leave, I had a couple good marketing ideas that I was sort of hoping you could help me promote around the village. I know in St. John's, I think there's an IKEA furniture store, so maybe they could sell Joe Bat's armoires. That would be one. If there was a bookstore, you could sell, rename the book "A Farewell to Joe Bat's Arms." And this is probably before your time. In 1987, there was a hit song by a group called the Cutting Crew called "I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight." And of course, that would now be re-recorded and titled "I Just Died in Joe Bat's Arms Tonight." Yeah, I know. The humor is not too good on this show.
No, it's good.
Celina,
I like where you're going with it.
Celina, thanks so much for coming on our show to tell us a bit about your area of the world. Her restaurant is Scoff, and their website is scoffrestaurant.com, SCOFF. And Celina, as I tell all of our small town spotlight guests, if you're ever in New Haven, Connecticut, I will treat you to some world famous thin crust pizza at Sally's or Pepe's on Worcester.
Nice. I do like a thin crust pizza.
She is Celina Parfitt and is a co-owner of Scoff Restaurant and Joe Bat's Arm on Fogo Island in Newfoundland. Celina, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And before we leave, we'd like to briefly mention the recent passing of John Eldridge, whose son Elias played basketball for 5 years for Evan before graduating in June. Evan, you'd like to say something about John?
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of coaching Elias for 5 years, and with that came a lot of traveling with the Eldridge family, and John kind of just like stepped in for me as the team dad, and he was always one of the first people with the big grin on their face after the game out there, and he was so proud of his son and the boys for what they did, and he became just such a big part of the team while I was part of it, and the news was absolutely devastating, and it's been tough on the whole town, and I think that it wouldn't be right to not mention here that the town is going to miss him. He was a great man who did so many good things for not just St. Andrews and the business here, but his work with the Coast Guard and in the marine science industry. And a lot people are gonna feel this one for a long time. Like this one hurts a lot more. But just to the Eldridge family, just know that we're all thinking of you, and anything you need, you've got the support of everybody in the area.
Very well said. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time on Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV.